On this episode, we're going to watch a video about gang members who are getting life sentences and how they react to getting their life sentences and why they got their life sentences. So let's not waste no time. Let's get right into it. If y'all don't know how we do it, we're going to watch the video together. I'm going to pause it and we can talk about it in the comments. Let's get it.
Sure, there are millions of stories out there that put billions of ideas in the common man's mind regarding the ruthlessness of gang members. However, some go to great lengths to prove those ideas to be highly true. Let's watch. Number 5. Abel Gallegos. Abel Gallegos appeared in Jefferson County District Court and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 163 years, for his role in the kidnapping and slaying 28-year-old Cymone Duran. Gallegos and two others, Alonso Quintana and Rene Rosales, were found guilty of multiple counts for their role in the retaliation slaying. Duran had identified Quintana in a lineup in an attempted slaying investigation in Adams County in early 2018. From there, she became a target of Gallegos, Quintana, and Rosales. On November 5, 2018, Duran was lured, kidnapped, shot 10 times as she begged for her life, and set on fire, according to authorities. Gallegos had approached Duran on social media and met with Rosales and others at a house in Denver. Duran, Gallegos, and Rosales left the house together, and Rosales went home. Gallegos took Duran to a parking lot on West Colfax and Kipling, where they had met Quintana. Quintana and Gallegos physically attacked Duran and imprisoned her in the back seat of a vehicle, authorities say. They then drove her to a dark, secluded spot at 7th and Nile in Golden, where Quintana and Gallegos shot her 10 times. Gallegos and Rosales later returned to the scene of her passing to pour gasoline on her body and set it on fire. This is Gallegos' 6th felony conviction and has been revoked on parole or probation 8 times. Judge Philip McNulty, the sentencing judge in this case, said that he was appalled by the casualness of this crime and disregard of human life.
This was a horrific crime. I am struck by the casualness in which it was committed, the absolute disregard. This is the result. This is where you will end up, to serve the rest of your life in prison.
You can't live among us anymore, Judge McNulty said.
You can't live among us no more. That's the last thing he heard. You seen he was shaking his head and throwing himself back like that, but I mean, damn, it took all these guys lost their life along with this lady, and I mean, damn, she got set on fire. I mean, good Lord, what like, dude has already been out 8 times. Like, how many, like, he don't care about his life. Like, I hate to say it, but like, he's gonna, where he's best fit is prison, unfortunately. Man.
Gang members. For more than an hour, Christopher Dean was brutally beaten by a 2x4 and a crowbar. He was sodomized with a handle-like object. Then he was shot twice in the back of the head and executed. His body was put in the trunk of a car and left at a MARTA station in Atlanta. Christopher Dean was the father of 2 young children.
They beat him to the point that his skull was actually depressed, that they were comfortable enough to let the evidence of the crime just sit for 30 days.
On October 17, 2016, Fulton County prosecutors said Christopher Lockett invited Dean, 33, to the Atlanta home of 23-year-old Xavier Gibson and 30-year-old Orlando Gibson.
The court got to see the comings and goings and essentially murder headquarters happening at Mr. Christopher Lockett's residence. As a result of the egregious nature of not only the injuries, on count 1, criminal street gang activity, the state's going to recommend 20 years to serve. On count 2, malice murder, state's recommendation is life to serve without the possibility of parole.
Dean thought it was going to be another drug deal with Lockett, like they'd done in the past. However, prosecutors said Lockett had learned that Dean was once a police witness in California. Lockett and other alleged members of the Gangster Disciples devised a plan to torture and end Dean to make an example out of him and to show other gang members that working as a police witness would not be tolerated, prosecutors said.
Chris was getting his life on the right track. It was so very hard for me to tell the 5-year-old his dad would never come home.
In my opinion, this slaying represents the most horrific attack in our county in recent history, Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard said. More than 2 years later, a jury convicted Lockett, Gibson, 23, Cortez Clark, 21, Rooks, and Green for slaying, felony slaying, participation in criminal street gang activity, and other related felonies. Stating the facts of the case were horrific, Fulton County Superior Court Judge Gail S. Tuzan sentenced all 5 of the defendants to life in prison.
And, to have your offspring leave the world before you do is a pretty sobering experience under any circumstances. I believe that completes what, yes, you can give that to Mr. Lockett. That completes the court sentencing in this case.
Lockett was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Clark was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences plus 5 years. Green was sentenced to life in prison plus 3 years. Rooks and Gibson were each sentenced to life in prison. Number 3, Carpio Brothers.
Damn. So 6 people total lost their life right there. You got one person whose decisions followed him all the way from California, which cost him his life, being a witness for the police, and 5 gangsters that are going to do life sentences behind decision to make an example out of this guy right here. 5 people, including the 6. So think about the fractures to all those family right there. All their brother, their son, whoever it is, getting yanked away from their family. On the one hand, the man ain't never gonna come back. He looked like he had a wife and some kids. Like he's forever gone. But the rest of these 5 too, they gonna go spend the rest of their life as they know it in the penitentiary around nothing but men for that decision, for the gang, for broing them, right? Man.
2 teen brothers were sentenced for their role in the 2013 fatal knifing of a student on the campus of Cleveland High School in Reseda. Anthony Carpio, 18, was sentenced to 16 years to life, and Michael Stephen Carpio, 20, was sentenced to 15 years to life. Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney Scott Marcus said, both Carpios were members of a street gang. They were each found guilty October 31 of 1 count of second degree against victim, 18-year-old Kevin Orellana, who was not a gang member. The Carpio brothers sat expressionless in the Van Nuys courtroom when Judge Martin Herskovitz pronounced sentence. Before sentencing, Marcus read a victim impact statement prepared by Orellana's family.
As a parent, we plan to dance at their wedding, celebrate a promotion, look forward to possible grandchildren. The last thought we would ever have is that we'll have to plan their funeral.
The 2 brothers will not be eligible for parole until at least 2028.
That's crazy. Not even one brother looked out for the other brother. They just following one another, blind leading the blind. Now they're gonna go do a whole bunch of time. Ain't that some shit? Man, I guess it don't get no realer though, right? Because I mean, shit, Cain killed Abel. You know what I mean? Like, man, it's crazy.
Number 2, Gang of 3. After 2 days of deliberations, a jury found 3 men guilty of the slaying of the owner of a Clinton Township party store. Kenneth Hill, 27, and Jomar Robinson, 26, both of Clinton Township, and Darius Diaz Gaskin, 25, of Detroit, were tried together in Macomb Circuit Court and found guilty of first-degree armed robbery, felony firearm possession, and conspiracy to commit armed robbery.
To the killers who murdered my brother in cold blood, I say this to you. You're an absolute disgrace to the human race. I hope that while you spent the rest of your life in prison, you actually reflect on the awful decisions you've made in your life. You have the blood of a loving father, husband, son, and brother on your hands.
Hill, Robinson, and Diaz Gaskin all face life in prison without parole if found guilty. A 4th man, Clinton Grayson, 26, of Detroit, was sentenced earlier to life in prison without parole on first-degree felony slaying and other charges. According to the store's videotape, during the 1-minute 44-second attack, Diaz, Gaskin, Robinson, and Grayson entered the Moonlight Party Store on Harper around 11 p.m. March 28, 2014. Owner Basim Sulaka stood up and in less than 20 seconds was shot in the back with Diaz Gaskin's 9mm handgun. Vivian Sulaka, Basim Sulaka's sister, said he was a peaceful man who didn't keep a gun at his store, nor did he install thick plexiglass. During closing arguments, Richard Glanda, lawyer for Diaz Gaskin, who is said to have shot Sulaka, said his client thought the gun's safety was on. Yet, unconvinced, the jury found all 3 guilty, and so all 3 culprits have been sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole for their crimes.
What more could you possibly want to take from this family, yet insult them and threaten them and say, this ain't over yet?
I know I wasn't talking to them. I know for a fact I wasn't.
Well, who were you talking to?
I was talking to my family.
And you know what? If I could give you an extra 10 years, I would, but I can't.
Number 1.
Once to get another group of people who threw their life just away. I mean, damn, you robbing the party store out of all places. I mean, what did you... And the owner right there looked like it was one man. It looked like he didn't really give no confrontation or nothing. They just popped the dude and took the little change that they got. Three-way split at the party store, and they done killed this man right here for what? Now they about to go sit down and do all this time in the penitentiary behind that little bit of change and that badass decision. Like, now the 3 grown fucking men, you would think, you know, somebody would be a little bit smarter. I mean, legal ways, you can make money so many other ways, but damn, this right here is just like ignorance at its finest though, right? Like, man, y'all robbed the party store though, the party store.
George Goweld Thomas. Convicted gang boss George Goweld Thomas has been sentenced to life in prison for slayings and other crimes he orchestrated from his jail cell. The marathon trial against Thomas and 16 others concluded in the Western Cape High. 6 other gangsters have also been sentenced to life behind bars. All the convicts were tried under the Prevention of Organized Crime Act for crimes committed between 2006 and 2010, ranging from slaying to conspiracy to commit slaying and racketeering. Thomas will serve 7 life sentences concurrently for the crimes he masterminded between 2006 and 2010. Judge Chantel Fortuin says Thomas and 16 henchmen showed no remorse deliberately and willingly carrying out hits to instill fear in the community.
My whole life shaped the person that I am today. I'm gonna be brutally honest. I'm not saying I regret it but what I know for a fact, if I could have changed some things, I wouldn't be here where I'm now.
The National Prosecuting Authority has welcomed the sentence, saying it's a victory in the war on organized crime. Meanwhile, Correctional Services has launched an investigation into how Thomas arranged several crimes from behind bars. Goweld, he made over 30,000 cell phone calls between 2008 and 2010 while awaiting trial. Thomas systematically planned the slayings of several people, including potential state witnesses, while he was an awaiting trial prisoner at 5 different facilities. The court heard how Thomas had turned the prisons into his personal headquarters and terrorized correctional service officials. During the trial, the convicted gang boss claimed he only attacked prison warders in retaliation after they hurt him. But Judge Fortuin said it was this brutal nature she considered when she handed down the life sentences. That's all for this video, folks. See you another time.
It's like some El Chapo shit right there, though. I mean, damn, he had the penitentiaries on lock right there. 5 different prisons that orchestrated all kinds of shit, but that's just real organized crime right there. You know, they already know they finna go do life in prison. They ain't really too worried about it. That's just part of the game to them. And then when they get there, you know, it's ranks and stripes right there. So as you see, got too much pull. You know, they shot caller status. They gonna put you in that little box. They gonna monitor all your mail. They finna do all that, but nobody wins here. Out of this whole time we watch all these videos, there ain't no winners here. This is all losers. Everybody lost. That's like, you know what I mean? What's the point of life? Everybody losing. Everybody losing. The man behind the trigger loses. The man in front of the trigger loses. Man, we gotta do better.